Hello there and welcome to the DualShockers Game of the Year 2022. The results are in, and after lots of internal discussions and quarrelling, we've nailed down the DualShockers Game of the Year, and the winner is... well, let's have a look at everything else first, yeah? Despite the best efforts by our Stray reviewer, Jack Coleman, to have Stray blacklisted as a banned topic on DualShockers, the dystopian cat venture just about managed to slink its way onto our Game of the Year list with a very respectable 10th place. As Matt Schomer put it in his Game of the Year list, want to jump on places where a cat shouldn't be? Make biscuits on a rug? Attack your friend's tail for no reason? Stray's got you covered. And if you don't want to indulge in those things, well, you can go and sit in the corner right next to Jack. For those who say that the super splattery co-op swarm shooter Darktide has failed to hit the heights of its predecessor Vermintide 2, we say give it a few years and it'll get there. Probably. Though we might moan about Darktide's progression, crippling ray tracing, intermission hub, and other tidbits beyond the core loop, the missions themselves are thrilling 20-minute death runs that make you not just forget about the game's problems, but makes you forget yourself. Honestly, we lost our features editor Rob for 3 days because he was stuck in a Darktide hole, and that's why he voted it one of his best games of 2022. Dying Light 2 is a strange one, delayed so many times that eventually the ever-building hype pushed through into despondency, making for a somewhat muted release, with dwindling player numbers ever since it came out. That didn't stop me, the video guy of DualShockers, ranking it as my personal best game of the year. In my list, and you can find the links to all the editors' top picks down in the description, I declared Dying Light 2 to be leaps and bounds ahead of its predecessor and, in my opinion, any other zombie game shuffling around out there. If X-Men did XCOM, but without the actual X-Men and a more ragged bunch of Marvel heroes, then you'd have Midnight Suns. And if there's something we learned from big IPs doing the whole turn-based tactics game thing this year, it's that it can work really rather well. Midnight Suns sees you sending the titular super team, led by the Hunter, into battle against the forces of Lilith. It's a fusion of card game and turn-based tactics, and it works really well, with character relationships being given time to build throughout the course of the story. A last-second addition to this list was Blacktail, and it was given glowing accolades by our Elijah Bean, who, in a wave of inspiration that defied all reason, decided to review the game after the Game Awards essentially bookended gaming in 2022. What a brave boy. Elijah described it as so. Blacktail is a game to be savoured, peeling away its world a little more at a time. If you meet it halfway, you'll be left with a breath of fresh air rarely seen in the industry these days. A well-paced game that only tries to be what it wants to be and never compromises that vision. The Stray-hating Jack Coleman flew the flag for this beautifully presented manuscript-style murder mystery. Its premise, which sees you spend much of the game chatting with the simple God-fearing folk of a small 16th century Bavarian town, is not super marketable, and lead designer Josh Sawyer admitted it probably wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Game Pass. But once you're in this heartfelt slice of history, it's a place you won't want to leave. As Jack put it, there is so much life packed into the tiny environs of Tassing that it'll begin to feel like home. While the grand adventures have come and gone throughout the year, Vampire Survivors is always there, waiting for us in the shadows until we're too lazy to play anything more complex before it pounces. Our final boss, Damien Likens, doesn't get nearly enough mention, so I'm using his wise words from his Game of the Year list to sum it all up. Accidentally gearing your character into god tier and mindlessly traipsing around while your super cool weaponized parrot decimates untold hordes of the undead with rainbow lasers with next to no effort is where it's at. Wise words indeed. Sadly, we live in a world where major publishers are often too wary of investing in bold new IPs. But if you're ever in doubt that it can work, just look at Horizon, which popped up from Killzone developer Guerrilla Games just 5 years ago, and is now, thanks to this excellent sequel, one of the most beloved video game franchises out there. Forbidden West almost came second in our list if it wasn't for its fairly routine approach to open world design, so-so story, and lack of compelling characterization. But these are all relatively small shortcomings in an otherwise spectacular adventure, and Aloy shouldn't feel too displeased with a bronze medal. She can probably craft it into an arrowhead or something. With all those delays, it felt like the concluding chapter of Kratos' Norse saga might have crumbled under the weight of anticipation, but we should never have doubted the PlayStation's prodigal father and boy, our Jeff Brooks, who gave the game a perfect score, called Ragnarok not just an incredible sequel, but a masterpiece in its own right. It's one of the best PlayStation games of all time, and a fitting end to one of the best video game stories ever told. Who'd have thought that the emotionally stunted Kratos of the PS2 and PS3 days would go on to become the believably flawed, beautifully bearded man he is today? And of course, our game of the year is Elden Ring. It tormented us, it dazzled us, it beat us into submission before motivating us to pick ourselves back up again to see the whole thing through. Having come out so early in the year, most of us here at DualShockers spent the rest of the year looking back on what a breathtaking and unprecedented journey it was. In some ways, Elden Ring added the simplest of things to that Souls template: an open world, a proper jump button, a horse, but it executed it all in such a way that it created an experience like no other. And here it sits upon its final throne as Game of the Year 2022 for DualShockers. And that is the end of our Game of the Year list. No doubt there will be some disagreements, but please just remember, I am just the mouth of the operation. They give me the words, I make the noises. So, on your way down to the comments to claim game X, Y and Z should have been first, second and third, spare a moment for your old pal Chris and hit the like and subscribe buttons, and turn on the bell icon so that you get notified whenever we've got some new stuff for you to watch. And of course, discuss the best games in the comments and I'll get the team to respond, but keep it friendly, please. I've been Chris, you've been gorgeous, and I'll see you on the next one. Until then, cheers my dears.